This is Life Strategies with Monique.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome again to another episode of Life Strategies with Monique. I have with me today a very special guest by the name of Ayla Goodson. Ayla is the founder of Gemini Studioz, which is located in Mobile and Baton Rouge, Louisiana. She is also an advocate for healthy living and is also the author of Great Morning Pals. Welcome to the show, Ayla. So glad you could make it this morning.
Hi. Me too. Thank you so much for having me.
I am so excited to hear your story about healthy living because I know some of us struggle with that. That is not an easy thing to do.
At all. It's not. A lot of people struggle with it, and I do too. So.
So that lets us know it's something that is definitely something you definitely have to work at. So go ahead and tell our listeners how you ended up being in the fitness industry and on a mission to really help individuals live healthy.
Well, I've always been an athlete as a child. I started taking gymnastics when I was about 6 years old. So from there, I was in the band in high school. I still remained pretty active. I ran track in middle school. And when I got to college, I became a cheerleader. So it's just really always been active. That's, the main thing. I've just always been active, always worked out, and tried to remain, somewhat healthy. I've never been like a, super health fanatic until maybe about 2008. And in 2008 was when I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. So that's when I kind of started taking my eating habits a lot more serious, in addition to fitness. So that's really how I got started. Like I said, I've always been pretty active, and then it just kind of, sparked a little bit more, when I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes.
So talk a little bit more about what type 1 diabetes is, because I know there are different types, and maybe my listeners may not even understand the difference between, I guess, type 1 and is there a type 2? So shed a little light on what type 1 means for you.
Okay. Type 1 diabetes is pretty much your body has a pancreas. Everybody has a pancreas. And the function of that body part is to produce insulin. And what insulin does, it takes the sugars that enter in your body and, kind of puts them in the right place in your body. When you talk about diabetes, with type 1, your body doesn't make any insulin. So your pancreas doesn't work. So therefore, there's no insulin that's being produced to take care of the sugars that enter your body through foods and, the things that you drink. So with type 2, either your body doesn't make enough insulin, or it makes too much, or your body doesn't know what to do with the insulin that it makes. So when you talk about the different types, most type 1 diabetics have to take insulin injections. So they have to take shots with their, whenever they eat, or, just on a daily basis. Basically, it's a daily medication injection. And with type 2, most times, if it's not as severe, most people are on like a pill, like metformin, where they don't have to take the actual injection. So that's pretty much, in short, the differences in the types of diabetes. There's also gestational, which is usually diagnosed for ladies during pregnancy. So some of them sometimes have to take the injections, and sometimes, they have to take pills, but it's just, really sparked by the pregnancy. And usually most women after, they give birth, they don't have to do the injections or the pills anymore. So those are the different types, like I said, in short, of, what type 1, type 2, and gestational diabetes is.
So what is, let's talk a little bit about the misconception about diabetes being, I guess, weight related. I think a lot of people associate, well, if you're overweight, you're going to naturally
Mm.
be a diabetic. What is
Right.
the correlation there?
Well, type 1 is it's really genetics actually. It's you kind of inherit type 1. For me, it just kind of came from really out of the blue. I was a sophomore in college, and like I said, I've always been pretty active, and I just noticed just a drastic change in my body. I was always extremely thirsty. I always had to go to the bathroom often. My moods would just drastically change. I'm a pretty energetic person, but there would be days when I would just be extremely tired, and it would just happen like in a quick second. I would be super excited, super energetic. We'd probably be cheering at a game, and then like 2 seconds later, I just need to stay down. I don't feel well. So, and I've always been, never really been over maybe 112 pounds. So I've, been pretty small. So when, I got diagnosed, I was like, well, my ignorance, I thought that it was just for people that were older and overweight. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what you usually see, people with diabetes. But type 1, like I said, it's hereditary. So you can get it at any age, really. They call it juvenile diabetes because you're usually diagnosed at a younger age, as opposed to type 2. Now, with type 2, it does have a lot to do with diet and exercise and age. Usually people that are a little bit more overweight, and aren't as active, physically active, they kind of get type 2 diabetes. And it's not because, a lot of people say, oh, it's because you eat too much candy, or it's because you eat too many sweets, or, things like that. But really what it means, and it's kind of going into a little bit more detail, carbohydrates. Your carbohydrates break down into sugars. So when you overeat or you're overweight, it's because you consume so many carbohydrates. You just basically have an unhealthy diet. So therefore, the body is consuming so much, and it's not being offset by, exercise, or it's not being offset by medication. So that's kind of, like I said, a brief little summary with, the difference of the two.
Mm-hmm. So you found out that you have diabetes, and so now, I mean, you've been very athletic, you've been used to that, so now you've shifted to how you, I guess, move about in your life now. So now your viewpoint is
Right.
changing. So talk about that journey and how it led you to where you are today.
Well, like I said, I was 18 or 19 when I was diagnosed. And, at that age, it's kind of like, I don't feel like I'm an unhealthy person. So it's just it was like a lifestyle change, basically. And there are a few stages I think people go through when they're first diagnosed with diabetes. Either it's like denial. I know I went through denial for a while because I'm like, I'm 19 years old. I'm 110 pounds. Now I have to completely, change my lifestyle. I got to change my eating habits. So I can't have this. And now I have to take a shot every day, multiple times a day. So it was really an adjustment for a really long time. I think maybe 2 or 3 years later was when I really started to take it serious. I had gone to the doctor, and the doctor asked me, he said, do you want kids? And I was like, yeah. And he said, do you want grandkids? And I'm like, yeah. He said, well, do you want to live to see them? And I'm like, yeah. He said, well, if you don't start taking better care of yourself, you won't be around to see your grandkids or your kids. So at that point, it was just a transitional period for me. I was just like, okay, Ayla, you're not invincible. You got to start watching what you eat, watching, your blood sugar numbers. And it's very hard as a type 1 diabetic to, kind of control your numbers. You can, like I said, with your diet, exercise, and medication, it's, easier to manage, but it's so many other things that you have to factor in that could cause spikes in your blood sugar, stress, if you're sick. Like lately, I have a cold now. Lately, my numbers have been extremely high because, my body's just going through all these different changes. So it's so many other things that, you have to take into consideration. But the journey to get where I am now was just realizing that I want to, live a healthy life because I want to see my kids and I want to see their kids and just live a healthy life. So I just, that was my transition, just that conversation. And really to see other people. I used to be extremely depressed about it. Why do I have diabetes? Why did I get, pinpointed with this disease? But as I've gotten older and through my journey, I just see so many other people that deal with it and see how they can be very discouraged. And I guess I'm just more so an example that you don't have to, just because you have this doesn't mean that, your life has to end there. It means that you just have to take a different approach, to just living a healthy life. So just trying to be that encourager, trying to be that motivator to people who, deal with the same thing that I deal with and, kind of flipping it and making it a positive for other people. So that's really how I got on this journey, just that conversation with that doctor.
Right. So now you have a studio.
Yes.
Gemini, and tell us about Gemini Fitness Studios.
Okay, Gemini Studioz came about. I lived in Houston for a while and I worked as an accountant. And I pretty much, this is going to be like a brief summary of it, but I just hated working. I hated my job. I hated, working for other people. And I just felt like, there was more to life than just going to work, paying bills. And, I just didn't want that. I just didn't want that to be my life. And I just knew that it was so much more to me than just going to work every day, sitting behind a desk, punching numbers, waiting on 5 o'clock, waiting for Friday, then Monday roll around, dreading Monday and waiting for Friday all over again. So I, like I said, I've always worked out. So I tried a different form of fitness, which was pole fitness. So I bought a pole, I put it up in my living room. I realized that I couldn't do anything with it and I needed to start taking classes. So I started going to classes and I was so convinced. I was like, I can teach myself this. Like, I work out, I can do this. I bought DVDs, videos, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is a lot harder than, what I thought. So I started taking classes and I just fell in love with it. It just really became like therapy for me. That was my me time. When I would leave work, that's how I would de-stress, learning something new, learning something challenging. And I just really fell in love with pole. I just fell in love with it. So I got to the point where I was like, you know what? I can move back to Mobile. I can open a studio. At that time, one of my best friends, she was a dancer all her life. So I said, well, this could be like a one-stop shop. I can have pole fitness and I can have dance for kids. A friend of mine at the time, he was a personal trainer. So I was like, I can do personal training, have fitness classes. I was like, I can just do it all. So that's what I decided to do. One day I went to work and I was like, I'm just going to look for buildings, commercial buildings. I was on the computer just kind of looking up stuff, and keep in mind I'm still in Houston now, so looking up buildings. I got a call from a realtor and he's like, hey, I think I got a perfect building for you, can you come look at it today? And I'm like, well, I'm in Houston, so I sent my mom. I was like, sure, I can come. So I sent my mom, she looked at it, she FaceTimed me, and that first location I just fell in love with. So after that, I just started to learn how, just started doing research on, how to start your own business. A lot of people, I think, get so consumed with where to start. What do I do first? I tell people all the time when they ask, how did you get started? Can you give me some advice? I literally use Google. I Googled everything that, all the questions that I had. And as I started to research more, I started getting in contact, with other people that kind of would, advise me with certain things. But like I said, I just randomly got the idea coming from pole class. I knew I didn't want to, work in corporate America anymore. I didn't want to do the 9 to 5 because I enjoy people. I enjoy interacting with people, encouraging people, talking to people. And I just felt like this would be perfect. So that was like July of 2014. I found the space, the location that I was in, open January 2015. And I've just been rolling ever since. I opened my second location in Baton Rouge this past April. So I'm coming up on a year in April in Baton Rouge, and I celebrated 4 years for here in Mobile. So that's just how it kind of all got started. Just me like hating my job, and I use that so lightly, but I would have to have pep talks. I tell people I would sit in my car, like I would pull up at work, and I would just sit there, and I was like, oh my God, I just don't want to go in. And it sounds, I think a lot of people deal with that, but
Yes,
I had a
most
good
definitely.
job. Yes, I mean, I had a really good job. I was 23 at the time, and I was making well over $50,000. So for that age, I mean, that's pretty good. I didn't have any children. I didn't have any major bills at the time, and I'm living in an ideal city. Houston, it's always something to do. It's so diverse. It was just a great, it was a great place that I was in, but I was just really unhappy with my career. And I was just like, this isn't what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So, I mean, I never thought I would move back to Mobile. I never thought, that I'd open a studio. That was never something that I wanted to do. My ideal career was to be a forensic accountant. So, going from that to being an entrepreneur, taking a major pay cut, it was just like, it was, you just kind of have to find that balance, and you have to figure out what is most valuable to you with your life. And I know that a lot of people, probably wouldn't have made the decisions that I made to just step out on faith and make it work. Sometimes that job has that security, you exactly what you're making every month, you're in a routine, and it's difficult to just kind of step out and say, you know what, I'm going to do my passion. So, that's how that journey got started, just not wanting to go to work.
Yeah. And that is such an amazing, amazing story of faith, Ayla. I mean, and I just love how you explain how you would sit in your car, because I totally understand what that feels like. Thinking to myself, do I really have to go in this place again? So many people. I know there's going to be somebody listening to this podcast that's going to be feeling that exact same way, thinking to themselves, right, I do not want to be in this job. I want to do something else, but they are so afraid. They are so scared, and they don't want to step out on faith. And yours is an absolute story of faith, because you really just stepped out and you just started moving. And I think that's what people really have to know and understand that they have to do. You got to start moving in faith, not in fear. Actually taking those steps to move forward in faith. Forget about your fears, because if you trust God, He's going to make a way. And, He absolutely made a way for you. And I'm just praying that my listeners are hearing what you're saying about what it means to step out on faith in your journey, because now you're speaking, you are mentoring. I mean, you've got a book. Talk about your book. Let's talk about your book. Great Morning Pals.
Yes. And these are all things that, as you're naming this, these are things that I never imagined that I would do. Like I said, honestly, my my sophomore year of college, my junior year, I got the opportunity to do it was kind of like a day internship with the IRS. And they introduced a new field of accounting, basically, and it was forensic accounting, or it was revenue investigation. So it was just kind of like, being a FBI agent or IRS agent, but working on white collar crimes like accounting stuff, like tax fraud and bank fraud and money laundering and things like that. And I was so sold on that. That's what I thought that, I wanted to do. And I graduated from college. I did a year of grad school for forensic accounting. And then I just realized, like, at that time, that's not what to do. And I moved to Houston, really discouraged. I was just like, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. Like, I know, this isn't it. And working there for 3 or 4 years, I kept saying, like, God, I know this is not my purpose. And my prayer was always for God to reveal my purpose to me. Just because I knew it was bigger than, just going to work and being unhappy with that. So the book came about when I was in Houston. 3 of my friends were working together at this, it's like a mental health facility. And just abruptly one day they went into work and everybody got laid off. They were closing down the facility. So I would just send them encouraging messages every morning, like, hey, just whatever the message was, whatever I felt, I would just send them, something to kind of help them jumpstart their day and not, be discouraged about their current situation, but just pushing them along. So at one point, they all started to post the messages on social media. And a lot of people, or they would share it with their friends, like they'll forward the messages to certain people. And people would say, who's sending you those messages? Where do y'all get them from? And people start following me on Facebook, and they're like, hey, can you send me those messages that you send your friends in the morning? So the morning message started to grow and grow. The list started to grow and grow and grow. And over the span of, I would say, like 3 years, it started to reach over 1,000 people a day. And this was just me waking up every morning. It was nothing that I would, think about beforehand. I would say a prayer like, God, whatever it is that you want me to tell people, just use me as a vessel. And I would send out a message Monday through Friday. And people sometimes would like write me back later on in the day. And they're like, oh my God, thank you so much for that message. And I would be like, what did I write today? Just because that was God speaking. That wasn't me. He was just using me, to send it out. But that's really how it got started, just as text messages. And maybe 2016. I think. So many people have been telling me, hey, Ayla, you need to put your messages in a book. And I just never felt it. I was like, I don't want to be an author. I don't want to do a book. I'm okay with these messages. But I think that God just puts you through a training process, to get you prepared for the next level. And I remember the end of 2016, it was maybe like December, I felt like God was telling me, you need to write a book. You need to put these messages in a book. Because I had them already saved. So it was literally just me needing to organize the messages, because I had been sending them for like 3 years. So I had 3 years worth of morning messages. And, God just really, when he's ready for you to go and he sees that you're ready, he's going to put things into place for you. I had no idea how to go about even starting to write a book. And I had met this guy at a pop-up shop maybe a year prior to. It was actually right when I first opened the studio. So it was back in 2015. And he was selling socks. And we were just talking about how he had gotten started with his sock business. And he also told me that he wanted to write a book. And I was like, oh, I've been thinking about it. I had these messages. And he was like, oh, yeah, well, I'm going to write a book one day. And I was like, okay. We lost contact, didn't talk, maybe for that next year. Randomly, I was scrolling on Facebook, and I saw that he had started his own publishing company. So I reached out to him, and I was like, hey, when did you do this? And he was like, oh, I just launched it not too long ago, and I published, my books. By that time, I think he had maybe about 2 books out already. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to let you know when I'm ready. So I actually went to a seminar at a church. This guy, one of the pastors, he was doing kind of like how he got started with writing his book. And so when he was talking about finding an editor, he said, well, you know, think about maybe like an old English teacher that you had, because people charge so much for editing. He was like, you know, if you can find somebody that will do it, you know, for lower cost, you know, all that. So I reached out to one of my sorority sisters, and I was asking her about this lady who worked at my high school. And she said, well, I can get you, you know, her number. So, okay. So she got me her number. I reached out to her, and I was asking, you know, how much do you charge to edit? And she was like, well, I really don't do it, you know, as a profession, but I'm always trying to help, you know, people out. So she said, send me a few excerpts from your book. So I sent it to her, and she, you know, kind of contacted me maybe the next day, and she was like, those messages were so powerful. She was like, they really blessed me. And she said, I was looking on your studio website, and she said, I saw that you do cheerleading camps and cheer clinics. And she was the cheer coach at one of the community colleges here in Mobile. So she said, let's do this. She said, if you come do a cheer camp for me, I'll edit your book for free. I said, for free?
Wow.
She said, yeah, you just come do a cheer camp. So I'm like, okay, that'll work.
Oh, yeah.
So she edited the book. Right. It was just so crazy. Everything just fell into place. One of my post students is a photographer. And I reached out to her, and I was like, hey, you know, can you take my pictures, my headshots? She was like, oh, yeah, you know, I'll take your pictures. Just give me a pole class for free. I was like, for free? She was like, yeah, took the pictures. My sister is a graphic designer, and she is amazing. She's an amazing artist. And when I first thought about doing a book back in, maybe it was like 2014, she created cover pages for me. And I never connected with any of them. I was like, this isn't my vision. It's just not my vision. And I'm not an artist at all. I can only draw probably stick people. So I called her, and I was like, hey, this is my idea for the book cover. So I just kind of doodled a little coffee mug and some steam coming from it. And I was like, I see black and I see purple. And I sent it to her, and when she sent it back, like, it was perfect. So at this point, now I have my editor for free, my photographer for free, my graphic designer for free, and my publisher. He was just like, Ayla, you know, I'm just getting started. I'll do it for $400. And I had gotten a quote maybe a few months prior from a girl who pretty much, you know, does editing, publishing, and all that. It was like $2,500 that she quoted. So to go from $2,500 to $400, I was like, okay, this is God. Sent him everything. Like, he finished in no time. That was from December, I think, when I got serious about sitting down and putting everything in order. I really kicked off the process maybe that January of 2017. And I did my book signing on my birthday in June of 2017. And at first I was like, I don't know if anybody's really gonna come. You know, I was a little bit nervous, but the book signing it was from 4 to 6. I literally signed books from 4 p.m. to 6:30. And I ran out of books. I had ordered maybe like 300 I ordered. Ran out of books. But people were so supportive of, you know, what I was doing and the messages and the book itself. So it was just like, you know, now people, that's been 2 years almost. Now people are like, where's volume 2? And I'm ready. It's already, you know, ready. I'm just like, okay, when God tells me to move, that's when I'm going to go. But that's how the book came about. And, you know, all the speaking engagements, you know, came about just from the book. So that was my book journey.
Well, I mean, but it's another amazing, a testament, you know, to just how God moved in your life and just being able to move out of state, you know. So I truly hope And I really hope and pray that my listeners are really grabbing a hold to the nuggets that you're giving to them about what it means to step out on faith and to not fear, because you are absolutely doing some amazing things here in Mobile. And, you know, I hear you in the podcast, you know, it's like so many things that you're doing that is really moving and shaking the lives of people in the community. So, I mean, I'm just amazed. I'm just so amazed at you and what you're doing here. I love what you're doing. I absolutely love what you're doing. So,
thank you.
Tell my listeners if they wanted to reach out to you, how they can get in touch with you.
I am on Facebook and Instagram, all the social media outlets, but my website for the studio is GeminiStudios.com, and it's spelled STUDIOZ. So if you want information about the studio, that's the website. For social media, it gets a little confusing because I have two for each studio. But if you're in the Mobile area, for Facebook, it's Gemini Studios, and it's one word. For Instagram, it's Gemini_Studios, MOB. For the Baton Rouge location, for Facebook, it's Gemini Studios_BR. For Instagram, is Gemini_Studios BR. Excuse me. For the book, for Instagram, for the website, it's Great Morning Pals, and it's just spelled with one R for the website. For Facebook, it's Great Morning Pals, spelled with 8 R's. And for Instagram, it's Great Morning Pals. But my personal page, you can find me on Facebook. It's Ayla Goodson. It's AYLAGOODSON. For Instagram, it's Ayla Goodson. Twitter as well. So many ways to find me. I'm located. The studio is located in Mobile and Baton Rouge. For the Mobile location, 1436 West I-65 South Service Road. And for Baton Rouge, it's 2834 South Sherwood Forest Boulevard. So I'm not hard to catch up with.
Yeah, definitely, because you're on all the platforms. Well, Ayla, thank you so much for being on the show today, sharing your testimony, your journey, you know, about with your diabetes and how you ended up in the health industry, and basically really encouraging and inspiring others who may be going through the exact same thing. So to my listeners out there, I truly hope that you got some nugget that encouraged and empowered you today, even educated you today in a manner that inspires you to want to move forward in faith and not in fear. So thank you guys so much for tuning in today to another Life Strategies with Monique. All of Ayla's information will be in the show notes. All of her contact information will be there. So please definitely reach out to her. I know she's going to respond to you in any way possible. So as always, stay educated and empowered.
You've been listening to Life Strategies with Monique. Contact Monique Petaway at www.moniquepetaway.com or info@moniquepetaway.com.